We're very fortunate to be joined in studio this morning by Congressman Ro Khanna of California. Great to see you, sir.
Always great coming in.
Yeah.
So we now have an issues page on the Kamala Harris for President website, and we took particular note of her language with regard to Israel and Gaza. Let's go ahead and put this up on the screen so I can get your reaction to it. She writes here, and this is the entirety of it, by the way, Vice President Harris will never hesitate to take whatever action is necessary to protect U.S. forces and interests from Iran and Iran-backed terrorist groups. Vice President Harris will always stand up for Israel's right to defend itself, and she will always ensure Israel has the ability to defend itself. She and President Biden are working to end the war in Gaza such that Israel is secure, the hostages are released, the suffering in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, security, freedom, and self-determination. She and President Biden are working around the clock to get a hostage deal and a ceasefire deal done. Your thoughts on her language here?
Well, it's basically what she said at the convention, but the question is how? I mean, everyone wants the violence to end, the suffering to end, the hostages to be released. The reality is you not only have to pressure Hamas, obviously you have to pressure them to release hostages, you also have to hold Netanyahu accountable because they say, oh, we're making progress every 2 weeks, we're close to a ceasefire deal. Then Netanyahu the next morning goes on Fox and Friends and says, no, this is all a lie. There's no deal. We're not making progress. And until you have Netanyahu knowing that at some point, he's going to be held accountable just like Hamas is. You're not going to get any deal. And by the way, the Israeli people want that. So many of the hostage families want that. Gallant wants that.
So let me ask you a little bit more about this. I don't know if you've seen these reports. I don't know if they're true or not, but there's apparently a debate going on in the White House right now between President Biden and some of his top advisors about whether they even continue trying to get a ceasefire deal. And I just look at it. They keep doing the same thing over and over again of, come on, guys, let's get a deal, but being completely unwilling to use the incredible leverage that the American government has. If we stop shipping the bombs, then Netanyahu is going to be not only under pressure, he's going to be forced to end the incredible, horrific onslaught in Gaza. So, you know, why is this just considered so completely off the table? And also, one of the lines that I've heard to rationalize Kamala Harris's response here is, well, she can't really distance herself from President Biden. I don't know if I agree with that, because if anything right now, she needs a little arm length separation from him. Can't she stake out a different position here and indicate how she would have approached this in a different way that would have ended with a less disastrous result than what we've seen?
Of course she can distance. I mean, Hubert Humphrey distanced himself from Lyndon Johnson with the Vietnam War. Yeah. And Humphrey, had he done it earlier, probably would have won that election. He waited too long. The other thing is, if Harris were to distance in any way, it would actually drive administration policy, because she has, right now, in my view, more power than Biden. I mean, she's the nominee. She has more say on the direction of the party. And so I think she would actually influence it. The reality is, look, there were 37 Democrats, and we got so much criticism when we said, don't give a blank check to Netanyahu. We're not going to vote for this offensive weapon aid. And all the United States has to do as a starter is to enforce our own laws, to enforce the security assistance laws, to enforce Leahy. President Reagan did this in 1982 when there was the bombing in Lebanon, and he called Menachem Begin and he said, enough. And they listened. So this has historical precedent with Republican and Democratic presidents, and it has nothing to do with being pro-Israel or not. This is actually good for the security of Israel, as many people in Israel themselves are saying, and for the release of the hostages.
Let me ask you then about that distancing from Biden. We talked a lot here on the show. This New York Times poll obviously causing a lot of consternation amongst Democrats. I would like your reaction to that, and also how you would give her advice to perform on the debate stage tomorrow.
Well, I think we've got to be out there more. Go on podcasts. I mean, I'd love the vice president to come on this show, or have Tim Waltz here, or have other surrogates. Go on all of the different media. Make your case. You know, the presidency is the most important job in the world and the hardest job to get. I don't think you get it playing prevent defense or being cautious. You've got to go out and fight for it. And that, I'm hopeful, after the debate, the vice president will do that, because she's very capable. I've known her for 20 years. She's very, very intelligent. And for some reason, she's surrounded herself with people who said, don't be out there. I don't think that's the right advice.
Do you think that's because she's inherited a lot of President Biden's staff? Like, what do you, as you said, clearly I would hope she's asking people who are, have different opinions. Is she largely listening to the Biden staff? Is she soliciting newer voices, opinions, and others? What's your experience been like that with that?
Well, giving her the benefit of the doubt, maybe they were trying to figure out where she pivots and where she keeps the policies, and maybe it took about a month to figure that out. And I understand it's not easy running a presidential campaign from ground zero. But she's now done that. She has a policy page. She's going to debate. So now's the time, I think, to make it clear. Here's where I stand. Here's where I would be different from President Biden on the economy, on immigration, on foreign policy. Here's where I want to continue what he's doing. And it should be very clear to folks. I mean, she wants to be the change candidate, and she is change in many ways in terms of her life story, in terms of who she is. But people also want to change in policy, and that's where she needs to be clear. Here are the changes that we're going to have on economic and foreign policy.
Yeah. So I understand you are a bit opposed to the weird language, the weird attack on Trump and Vance. I personally have been a supporter of the weird attack because I feel like some of the previous attempts to define him, like the Biden style, is very grandiose. It's very, moralizing, threat to democracy, et cetera, et cetera. And it almost makes him bigger than he really is, whereas the weird, like these guys are just kind of a bunch of weird freaks, is very diminishing in a way that has clearly driven both him and J.D. Vance crazy. But tell me about your analysis of this, both from like a moral and a political perspective, why you don't think that language and that framing is the right direction.
Sure. Well, look, I like the framing that Vice President Harris had of he's unserious, he's frivolous, he's not taking the weight of what it means to be president seriously. When you call someone weird, the risk is that voters may hear that, not just that, you're saying that about Donald Trump or J.D. Vance, that you're saying that about their supporters. And that's 45, 46, 47% of the country. Now, I don't think it's like deplorables, but there's a fine line. And what we need to do, in my view, is respect the people who are voting for Donald Trump or J.D. Vance and say, we've got a better vision. We've got a better vision of how to get new factories. We've got a better vision of how to help the working class with a living wage. We've got a better vision of how to lower prescription drug costs. We've got a better vision of how to strengthen America in a modern economy and in a modern world. And I guess I'm old-fashioned that way. I still think you can persuade people and win, and you can attack them for not being serious, but don't convey to voters that somehow they're not part of the American story.
Yeah, interesting. We were talking a little bit about men. David Hogg, we were saying, put out an interesting tweet today about how young men specifically, but males, both Latino, Black, largely are the margins that are driving both towards Trump or at the very least away from Kamala Harris. Number one, why do you think that is? And then what would your general advice be outside of just do podcasts or something in order to actually reach some of these people? Yeah.
Well, there are a lot of reasons, and I certainly don't have the definitive answer. But as a start, I would have Bernie out there more. I mean, Bernie did very, very well with young men. I mean, unfairly, he was called the bro candidate, but he had a lot of young men who were supporting him. And I think that there's an anger at the system and a sense of wanting some bold ideas. And if we can convey that we have a way of reforming the system, that people need more opportunities for wealth generation. I don't think we should be against Bitcoin or crypto. That's an issue for a lot of young people. I think we need to show we're a party for free speech, but we're a party that's listening to them and has a place for them. I do think going on these podcasts and trying to reach them is important.
Yeah, we would like her to do that as well.
Yeah. Make sure you put it in a word.
Many Democrats believe that Donald Trump is not only a grave threat to the country, which I agree with, that he's one of the worst presidents in history, and yet, you look at the New York Times poll and it's tied. Kamala Harris actually in that poll within the margin of error, losing by a point. Why, in your assessment, is it so close?
Because the American dream has slipped away for so many people. They've seen their healthcare costs rise, childcare costs rise, college costs rise, vocational education rise, jobs no longer paying $35 an hour, massive deindustrialization. This has been going on for 50 years. And to think that 3.5 years of Biden was going to reverse that was impossible. No one could have reversed it. But people are still frustrated. They're angry, and they see the role of big money in politics, of lobbyists, and they see an establishment that has let them down and an establishment that has gotten us in too many wars. So they want change. They've been voting for change since Barack Obama, and they haven't been getting the change they want. And I don't think people are thinking of it with more depth than that, other than this system isn't working for us. Our kids aren't going to have a great future. Let's try something else.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right on that. Anything else, Krystal?
I think that's it, Congressman. We're always so grateful for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Enjoyed it.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.